So you want to know how to make your audio quality sound better? Keep on watching this video. If she don't wanna be here, that's fine. What's up, everybody? It's Chris Lee back with another United Destiny Entertainment video. And check this out. What I'm gonna be doing in this video is helping you guys figure out how to make your audio quality sound better when recording your songs. Now, I get it. A lot of you guys probably been recording vocals for a long time. You probably been trying some mixing techniques, looking at a bunch of YouTube videos, and for some odd reason, you can't figure out why your quality doesn't sound good. Well, I'm gonna give you guys a few tips to actually help you get better recordings. Let's jump into it. All right, tip number one, your gear and improper use of your gear. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go out and spend a lot of money on a bunch of audio equipment, which means that if you spend a little bit more money, you're probably gonna get better components and a more expensive equipment. Just because the equipment is cheap doesn't mean that it doesn't work. I love to use the word inexpensive because it basically says that that inexpensive gear is still valuable and still works the same as the expensive gear, but it just all depends on how you use it and the application that you're using it for. Just because a microphone is $100 does not mean that it's any less valuable than a microphone that is $500 or maybe $1,000. It just all depends on what you're using it for. There has been plenty of times in the music industry, as well as me mixing for different clients, that I've had to use a $100 microphone as my go-to over a $5,000 Neuman microphone. It just all depends. Whatever it's gonna sound better for while you're doing your recording. So you have to be mindful what you're actually using your equipment for. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to really understand how to use your gear properly. Now, the applications definitely matter. When you're using your microphone for something random, say if you're just using a condenser microphone, it all depends on what you're recording for and how you're using that microphone. You wanna be able to try to find a microphone that's gonna cover good range in the frequency spectrum, something like 20 hertz and 20,000 kilohertz. Another thing that makes a difference is actually monitoring what area of that microphone is actually going to be best suited for your vocals. If you're going to be using a condenser microphone and you got a very deep vocal, it's probably not the best idea to go buy a very muddy microphone, meaning that it doesn't have very much mids or high-end frequency, right? You want to find a microphone that's going to pack more top end or mid ends for your vocals so you can kind of balance that out. If you are recording vocals and say your vocalist is a female, she has very bright, thin vocals, then it's probably best to get a microphone that's gonna have a lot of mids, a lot of low end as well, just so you can kind of balance that out. And the reason why I say that is just because whatever microphone gear that you choose to use for your application or whatever you're gonna be recording, you wanna make sure that you understand the frequency range so you can be able to cut and boost wherever you need to. So I would personally say a TLM102. I personally feel that that microphone is very bright. So will I use that microphone on somebody with some really bright vocals or really thin bright vocals? Probably not, because it's gonna sound real thin, right? I would actually use a TLM103 because I feel like overall across the board, that microphone has some top end, but it also has a lot of mids and low ends that brings a lot of warmth out of the vocals. I tend to use it on the majority of my recordings, especially if I'm singing the falsetto. Now, if I'm singing something that's a little more deeper in vocals, then I'm gonna go reach for basically a brighter microphone that doesn't pack a lot within the low end, or if I'm mixing it, then I'll go ahead and cut in that area. You have to also be mindful of how you're using your gear. If I'm recording vocals and say this is my microphone, well, number one, this matters. The distance between you and the microphone, that makes a big difference. If you are far away from your microphone, then you're probably not gonna get good, clear vocals. If you bring the microphone a little bit closer, it's something that I like to call the proximity effect. Long story short, the closer the microphone is, the more deeper the tone is gonna be in your recordings, okay? The further away it is, the more thinner your vocals are gonna be. That's something that you have to take into consideration. So whatever song that you may be recording, you have to decide the sound that you're going for. Do you want the vocals to kind of sound a little bit far away, or do you want the vocals to sound kind of up front and in your face? I tend to personally say that I would keep the vocals, my vocals or my mouth relatively a good distance. I would say at least 3 to 6 inches away from the microphone while recording. Now in the process, this very much can change. It just depends on what you're doing it for. When the microphone is too close, again, you're gonna get a lot of the mid tones and a lot of the low frequencies in your vocals. So your recording may come out a little bit more muddier or a little darker in tone. So what you wanna do is in the post effects process is you want to use some EQ to kind of cut some of that out to make sure that the vocals get some of that clarity back and thin it out and help it punch through the mix. Now, when I'm also talking about the improper use of a microphone, this here in front of me is a dynamic microphone. Now, if we were to talk about an actual condenser microphone, let's see, maybe, let's see if I have one around here. Yeah, I actually do. All right, so just to be clear with you guys, this is a Sterling Audio ST69 microphone. This is a great microphone. I do a lot of recordings with this microphone. I love it. I use this microphone on a lot of my clients. This is probably one of my go-to microphones. I love it, along with my Neuman and other microphones. They work great. Now, improper use of your microphone. One thing that people tend to do a lot of times is they buy microphones and they don't really know which way to record through the microphone, or they don't know if it's omnidirectional, which is going to record all around the mic, or if it's figure 8 that's going to record through the front and the back, or if it's just cardioid that's just going to record mainly through the front of the microphone. The majority of the time I see a lot of people making mistakes to where I'm about to start mixing their songs, and when I'm starting to mix their songs, I notice that their vocals sound very thin and hollow. Now, when they sound hollow, the reason for that being, we have to go through the process of us checking the microphone, see if the microphone is damaged. They either go to Guitar Center or somewhere to have the microphone checked out to see if it's actually working properly. When they do, especially if they live in a different state, they usually find out that the majority of the time they were recording through the microphone through the back end, and it was a cardioid microphone, right? So in the process, you need to make sure that you are recording through the front end of the microphone, whichever that may be. If it's a super cardioid, then likely you need to be right in front of the microphone to record the vocals properly. If it's an omnidirectional, you can record all around the microphone, and it's likely gonna record your vocals properly without sounding hollow or you know, I guess you can say the null point off axis, okay? If I'm recording my vocals, you usually wanna try to check for a cymbal. Most microphones will come with a cymbal or something on the front that's letting you know, hey, this is the front end of the microphone. If it don't have any, just go ahead and check your manual, or go ahead and try to get in contact with the manufacturer and see what the vocals sound like. If you can't do any of those options, make sure that you at least try to record into the microphone. If you record into one end of the microphone and it sounds very clear, present, and natural like a person talking in front of you, then that's probably the right side that you need to be recording in. Now, if you record through the wrong side of the microphone and it tends to sound very hollow, thin, like you're in some type of room, then it's a likely chance that you're recording through the wrong side of the microphone. It shouldn't sound muffled, it shouldn't sound flat. So always keep that in mind. Tip number 2, distance from your microphone. The distance from your microphone makes a huge difference when it comes to recording vocals. The majority of the time, I see a lot of artists, when they're in the studio, I'm gonna use this microphone for example, they tend to move their microphone way back here and they start recording, right? And then they wonder why when they're recording in the Pro Tools, their vocals are really, really thin. Well, there's a reason for that. There is something that I like to focus on called the signal to noise ratio. The signal to noise ratio is basically going to tell you the level of the vocals compared to the level of the room tone or the sound of the room in the room. If your microphone is really far away from you, and say on your preamp, which is going to be the most key in this situation, say if your preamp is too low or your interface is too low, then your signal to noise ratio is going to probably be off. So that means that if the interface or the preamp is too low on your interface, then 9 times out of 10 when you record those vocals, it's gonna record more of the room tone, so you're gonna hear a lot of the ambient noise, maybe you know, noise from the ambience, the atmosphere. You're gonna hear a lot of that noise, and it's gonna sound like a lot of hiss or a lot of white noise in your recording, simply because the microphone is picking up more of the room noise and not your actual vocals. You wanna make sure that the knob on your preamp is either at 12 o'clock or higher than that. Now, every interface or every preamp is pretty much different, so you're just gonna have to play with the levels. As soon as you turn it up to the point to where it's close to distortion, and then back it off some. That's where you know that you are pretty much getting a good level on your recordings. Now, I've used different interfaces to where once I start to turn up the preamp or something like that, I can turn it pretty much all the way up and my vocals still aren't as loud as I want them to be. And then I've used some interfaces or preamps, if you will, to where I've turned up the preamp and I barely turned it up and my vocals were already super loud. I didn't have to, turn it up that much. So it really just depends on the type of gear that you're using. You have to be mindful on the gear that you're using in the process. Now with the signal to noise ratio, again, you want to turn the preamp up loud enough to where it can, or the gain for your vocals loud enough to where it's actually going to pick up more of your vocals and less of the room. And you want to have the microphone at least close enough to where I would say between 4 to 6 inches, just depend on what you're recording it for, because obviously you would use like a windscreen or a pop filter, whatever the case may be. So I would at least try to keep my mouth at a particular distance like this when I'm recording vocals. This is a good distance for me. This is very comfortable for me. I feel like it's very effective. Now in the process, if you tend to get way back here, the only time I tend to move back when I'm recording vocals is if I'm gonna actually sing louder or do something that's gonna basically raise the dynamic level of my vocals. So sometimes if I know I'm gonna scream or yell or sing a loud note or whatever the case may be, I tend to move back and turn my head a little bit off axis so I'm not clipping and distorting in the process while I'm trying to record vocals. So always keep that in mind. Just keep the microphone at a good distance. Don't try to be way back here trying to record your vocals. And you definitely don't want to be too close up on it. Like I said, because with the proximity effect, the closer you are to the microphone, the vocals are going to be very, very deep. They're going to be very muddy, and you're going to pick up a lot more of the lows and the midtones in your vocals. So just back up and give yourself a nice distance so you can sound natural with your vocals, okay? I personally think that noise gates in your signal chain or your vocal chain is very effective to keep a lot of that background noise out of your recording, so look into using a noise gate. The third recording tip is actually recording into a treated environment. Now, the majority of the time, a lot of you guys don't have the money or you don't have the budget to go recording in professional studios that are treated. But the majority of the time, it doesn't even require all that. Another big mistake that I tend to see a lot of times with a lot of recording artists is a lot of their recordings come out crappy because of the environment that they're recording in. If you're recording in an open room without any furniture or without any blankets or without any carpet, then it's a good chance that your vocals are going to come out very echoey. It's going to be very reflective, almost in like a hallway or a bathroom. That's something that you want to avoid. So in order to fix these issues, you want to go ahead and try to treat the area that you're recording your vocals in, whether that may be using blankets, putting blankets up around the wall, getting more furniture in the recording space that you're recording in, putting down some carpets in the process to really help dampen that sound. You want to try to go for a flat sound when recording vocals. The majority of the time, if you are recording in that open space, your vocals are going to sound really reflective, and that's not what you want to go for, especially if you're trying to get a good dry flat sound for the engineer or yourself to go ahead and mix. Now, what happens when you record in an untreated area? The majority of the time, the vocals already sound like they have reverb on them. Now, there's all type of different treatments that you can actually use to record or fix your recording space. If you're in a small room, just get some furniture in there. If you have anything on the wall, I've seen people use egg cartons. I've seen people buy some of the panels from online. Or you can do things like how I've done. I went ahead and built 6 to 8 custom acoustic absorption panels, and what I did in the process was I definitely wanted to make them to where they really deadened the sound in my recording space. This is the area that I tend to do the majority of my work in, even recording vocals, and it works just fine for me. If you walk through the rest of my place, it's very echoey, but the minute that you step into my recording area or my recording space, the sound is very dead and it's very flat, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those dry vocals, because when it's time for me to mix vocals, I can actually be very creative and I can actually use any type of plugins that I want. So I can use multiple reverbs, delays, compressors, EQs, whatever the case may be. In the process, I also have some carpet in the area that I record in, which helps out, as well as the furniture around me. So having the panels on the wall all around me, as well as the carpet and the furniture in here, it really deadens the sound and it makes my vocal sound really dead and flat. And I don't have to worry about having my vocal sound real reflective or echoey or anything like that. It turns out great when I mix vocals for me or my clients, and it just tends to work out the best for me. Before I let you guys go, I wanted to go ahead and give you guys a bonus tip. Now, one thing that's gonna matter most is your plugins. And when I say plugins specifically, I mean your EQ. Your EQ is gonna help you out the most. If you feel like you're recording some bright vocals, and say that you're recording in a bright microphone, but the vocals is lacking a little of that warmness or the low mids, then that's fine. Use the EQ and go boost some of the low mids and maybe some of the low end in the actual vocalist vocals so you can actually kind of give it some of that warmness. Don't be afraid to use the EQ. If you feel like you bought a microphone and your microphone is too sharp in the top end, that's okay. Use the EQ to go ahead and go inside of your recording DAW and actually use the EQ to cut some of that top end or the high mid frequencies. If you cut some of that and take some out, it'll definitely give your vocals a very good balance that's going to help your vocals sound professional and clean. These are really some of the tips that I feel is going to help you guys get professional recordings. You guys heard a lot of my recordings. The majority of you guys think that I record in, you know, like $500,000 studios or on these big SSL consoles or anything like that, but I don't. Guys, I record the majority of my material as well as my clients here at home in my recording space. It's because I know how to use my tools properly. I understand my tools properly. I understand the distances from the microphone. I understand how to effectively get a clean vocal from myself. A female vocalist, a male vocalist, it really doesn't matter. All right, guys, so what I just brought in here is an actual Neuman microphone, TLM103. Love this microphone, great microphone, right? But then also in front of it, I have a pop filter. Now, this is gonna make a big difference as well, because when I'm recording my vocals, you wanna make sure that the pop filter isn't right up against the microphone. That's not gonna be very effective because we tend to move all the way up on the actual microphone, but the vocals will still come out loud, especially if the levels on a preamp or your interface are too high. So you definitely don't want to do that. What I tend to do is I tend to actually put my pop filter at least 3 inches away from the microphone, and then I tend to be at least 1 to 2 inches away from the pop filter to record my vocals. This is assuring that I actually get some very clean, nice vocals. My vocals aren't too bright and they aren't too deep. So this is a good level for me. Now again, if I tend to move back, then it's a good chance that the signal to noise ratio, the microphone may in fact pick up more of the room tone versus my actual vocals, okay? Now, if you're recording your vocals and your vocals come out really, really thick and they come out kind of like chopped off at the top, then 9 times out of 10, you're probably recording some distorted vocals and your vocals aren't gonna sound good. They're gonna sound clipped, they're gonna sound distorted, and they are 9 times out of 10 gonna be very unusable, right? Now, if your vocals are very, very thin in a process, then you're probably recording your vocals too low, which means that it's a likely chance that that signal to noise ratio thing that I talked to you guys about, it's a likely chance that you're recording the majority of the room tone versus your actual vocals. So you want to turn the gain up loud enough to be able to actually hear the majority of you nice and clear and very little room tone. So guys, don't overthink the whole process. Like I said, just go out. I'll put some links in the description box showing you guys some good combinations that you can actually buy to get you some gear. Trust me guys, the combinations that I'll have in the description box is going to help you guys get some professional recordings. If you guys just trust me on the tips that I've given you in this video, believe me, your songs will come out professional. At any time that you decide that you just don't want to record or you just don't want to mix your own vocals, then contact me. I provide different services for podcasts, voiceovers, recording songs, mixing vocals for actual videos or short films or anything that you may be shooting. If you guys need a professional who knows what he's doing to actually mix your songs, I'll put some links in the description box. You can actually go check out some of my music or check out some of the music or the songs that I've mixed on my channel. And let me know what you think about the professional quality. If you want me to mix and master your stuff, have it radio ready, have it ready to take to any record label, have it ready to show the world or do any type of performance, just contact me. I have great rates, guys. I can go ahead and get your stuff mixed and mastered for you, and I promise you it'll be A1 quality, especially if you trust me on treating your room, if you trust me on the gear, if you trust me on the distances from your microphone, if you trust me about the frequencies. If you listen to all these tips, guys, I guarantee that it's going to make your vocal sound a lot more professional, as well as give you a lot of professional sounding material that you can actually shop around and let anybody hear. So if this video helped you out, guys, I really appreciate it. Focus on the microphone. Focus on what you can do with the microphone first. As long as your levels on your interface is set properly, the gain level or your preamp, whatever the case may be, then your vocals are going to sound great. Just don't overdo it. Don't do too much. If anything, make sure that your vocals are loud enough, but do not have your vocals too low because you're going to pick up a lot of that room tone and a lot of your recordings aren't going to sound good. So guys, I really hope that this video helped you guys out. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. Let me know what you think. If you guys also have any tips that you would like to share with me, I will highly appreciate it. Guys, share this video with everybody, and I really appreciate you guys for watching. Peace. You text me in the morning, lunch in the evening, late night phone call. Girl, come ease my mind so I can sleep tonight. Been struggling with insomnia, and you gon' make it right for sure.